Breaking news. The Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office requests an investigation into the market value of the jewelry seized from former Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. Let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Medidas Cautelares. We have breaking news and it would certainly be worrying if I were José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. Attention, the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office has requested an investigation into the current market value of the jewelry seized from former Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero by the Economic and Fiscal Crime Unit, UDEF. As you know, the jewelry was seized during a search of a safe in one of Zapatero's offices, guarded by his now famous secretary Gertrudis. An initial appraisal valued them at 1.3 million euros. Well, the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office has now asked Judge Kalama to have the market value investigated. The market value could certainly be an even higher figure than those 1.3 million euros, which I honestly think is quite an understatement. To share this information on screen, as we always do. By the way, if you haven't done it yet, come on. One last push to reach 142,000 subscribers. We're about to go on vacation, but we need to make that final push. Many of you are watching Medidas Cautelares from the beach, from the pool, from your homes. Thank you very much. Before we get into the details, let me remind you of recent events, starting with news from the past 24 hours. Which is Zapatero's famous interview on Spain's public broadcaster Televisión Española with Javier Ruiz, which of course I think has been an interview that has left Zapatero looking very, very bad. Now, I'll tell you my impression about this interview, but I would like us to go back. The part in which the former Prime Minister, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, is asked precisely about the controversial, now famous jewels. Let's listen to it.
José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero, where are those jewels from?
This is a story with no ulterior motive, without any desire for personal gain. It's a personal courtesy gift from many years ago. Of course, I have to be very careful because I want everything about the origin and what happened to be specified before the court. But I'll say it. They had neither use nor purpose. We haven't even thought about them, nor about the value that has now been attributed to them, which, by the way, is a value that will be challenged. So I must say that. Neither use nor purpose, nor any desire for personal gain. They were there, we had never really talked about them, honestly, for many years. And they were kept with all the jewelry from our family, from our families, and some other gifts. Well, it has been, without a doubt, a very difficult situation. Very negative, right?
But where do they come from, President? It's 1,323 euros.
What Odez says, that's what this is worth. I repeat, this will be challenged. And secondly, I must, out of respect for the judicial process, clarify all the circumstances and everything that will be recorded before the court. I must do it this way, because it is my commitment and my duty. The only thing I want to make clear here is that there was no intention of personal gain, nor use or purpose, nor could we imagine that value. They were just there, and nothing more. They were the result of a personal gift, a gesture of personal courtesy from a long time ago. From Arabs? That's right, just like that. No, I'm not going to say the country. I insist. I want to explain everything before the judge. I think I've conducted myself appropriately. I know I have that dilemma, right? Between giving a public explanation and respecting the judicial process, my cooperation with justice, and among other things, my right to a defense, which is also there, right? My right to a defense and to a fair process with all the proper safeguards.
And that's what José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero said in that interview on Spain's public broadcaster this Thursday. He says the jewelry was a courtesy gift. However, at no point does he clarify who gave him that courtesy gift, when, where the jewelry comes from, the real value of the jewelry, because he jokes around a bit, right? He says, 1.3 million euros. Yes, we'll challenge it. What does it mean that they're going to challenge it? Well, it means his lawyer will present an expert report, hired by the defense, in which they'll say that the jewelry doesn't cost 1.3 million euros, but rather 1.3 euros, right? Basically, that's what Zapatero is going to do, commission an expert report to say that the jewelry isn't worth what it's said to be worth, but rather 1,000th of that. I remind you that his spokesperson, when this whole story came out, said they cost between 30,000 and 50,000 euros. And now we're at 1.3 million euros. Zapatero's interview, honestly, was a joke. He didn't clarify anything. I don't think Judge Calama found it very amusing that when he refused to make any statement in court about the jewels, now he does so, even though he doesn't clarify anything. But he has already said, for example, that it was a courtesy gift. He didn't even do that in court before Judge Calama a month ago when he promised to give explanations. It's been more than a month and there hasn't been any explanation about the jewels. And he went to Spanish television, to Telepedro, to say the nonsense he said in that interview, in which I think he came out looking very, very bad. This is what I wanted to remind you of, and now let's go ahead and share the hard facts about that decision from the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, which I think is going to put José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero himself in even more trouble in an even tighter spot. We already have it on screen. The Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office requests that the judge investigate the market value of Zapatero's jewelry. The Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office has requested the head of the Central Investigative Court, number 4 of the National Court, José Luis Calama, to investigate the market value of the jewelry found in the office of the former Prime Minister, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. The Judicial Police, that is the Economic and Fiscal Crime Unit of the National Police, the UDEF, carried out a search last month. On May 19, the office of the former socialist leader located on Ferraz Street was searched following an order signed by Judge Calama. The investigating judge commissioned the jeweler Ansorina to prepare an initial report. A first appraisal of the jewels, and Ansorina determined that they had an approximate value of 1.3 million euros. Well, according to what we have been able to assess. Action regarding the jewels, and Ansorina determined that they had an approximate value of 1.3 million euros. Well, according to what we have. The Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office has already requested the judge in a written filing to have a second report prepared by the same jewelry store. This would be aimed at expanding the available information about the jewels to determine their real market value, which could be much higher than the appraised 1.3 million euros. In addition, the Public Prosecutor's Office is demanding to know when the jewels were assembled, information that the jewelry store might be able to provide. The first report on the jewels from the initial appraisal by Ansorina led Judge Calama to charge Zapatero with new tax and smuggling offenses. In his statement on June 2nd before the judge handling the Plus Ultra case, the former PSOE leader refused to testify on this matter and asked the judge to give him between a week and 10 days to obtain the documentation, which according to him would prove the legality of possessing the jewels. Almost a month later, Zapatero still has not requested to make a voluntary statement before the National Court Judge José Luis Calama. Regarding these, as was said and we just heard, Zapatero stated in an interview given to Spanish television, specifically on Javier Ruiz's program, that the jewels were a courtesy and personal gift. And the former president did not want to clarify who had given him the gift or when, only stating that it was many years ago. And this is the latest information we have in Medidas Cautelares. The Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office has requested this from the judge of the National Court, José Luis Calama, who is investigating the case. Plus Ultra, a new appraisal. A new report on the jewelry seized from the former Prime Minister, José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. In a safe guarded by his secretary in one of his offices, Gertrudis. In an initial appraisal carried out by Ansorina Jewelers, those jewels were valued at 1.3 million euros. However, the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office believes that their market value could be much higher. In addition, it should also be remembered that Zapatero's spokesperson, when the jewels were seized from Zapatero in that safe, publicly stated that the jewels were worth between 30,000 and 50,000 euros. Ansorina denied it, raising the value to 1.3 million euros. And possibly the new report commissioned, requested by the Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, which Judge Calama has to approve, could point to an even more complicated legal scenario for Zapatero, because the value of those jewels could increase significantly. Any updates on this matter, of course, we will keep you informed here on Medidas Cautelares. That's all for this edition of Medidas Cautelares. I hope you enjoyed the video. As you can see, Zapatero is increasingly cornered, and you will have all the information, as always, here on Medidas Cautelares. Remember to leave your opinions. What do you think is going to happen with Zapatero? Things look really bad for him. You can share the video with whoever you want, family, friends, anyone you like. And of course, support this community if you haven't already by subscribing. If you haven't done it yet, so we can reach those 142,000 subscribers before the end of August. And you can also become members, like the chosen ones for less than €4 a month, or like the supreme ones for less than €8 a month. We have to dedicate today's video to our new member, one of the chosen ones, Alejandro Elorriaga. Thank you very much, Alejandro, for your trust. And to all of you for your trust, since we are already close to 120 members and 142,000 subscribers. So really, thank you all very much. The most important thing, as I always say, is that this information reaches everyone because information is power. See you soon. See you.